Hello, it is Tuesday the 7th, and this is your social studies lesson on the legislative branch. So we have already been working on the first half of the legislative branch, the Senate. And so first thing I want you to do is open up your notebook to your page for the legislative branch, and let's review and make sure everyone has what they need for the Senate. And then we're going to learn about the other half of this branch, which is the House of Representatives. So Ryan and some of you had mentioned on our Zoom meeting that you had run out of room. So don't worry, just write on the next page, maybe make a line if you have room on the same page so that you know this is for the House of Representatives part when we start. And we can just move the next branch over if you need more space. Having said that, because this is the same branch, most of the terms we wrote down for the Senate cover both sides of the branch, the House and the Senate. So we're not going to do a whole lot more for the House of Representatives. I just want to write down a few key things that are different about the House than the Senate, okay? So don't worry, it's not going to be quite as much as the first video we did together, okay? So first things first, let's look at our page where we have started writing down terms and things for the Senate. So let's take a look here, just to review. You know that the Congress is the legislative branch, and the Congress is made up of two parts, the Senate and the House of Representatives. So far, we wrote down a term for a bill, and a bill is written down ideas for a law. We wrote down and talked about a debate. Debate is when two sides on one subject sort of talk and discuss their side, their point of view, and they are trying to get the others to agree with them and move their minds to their ideas. That's a debate. We talked about a treaty. A treaty is an agreement between countries, usually signed by leaders, or it can be agreement between leaders. Treaties are very important to our country. They're kind of like deals, or this way we know where we stand with other countries and what we're allowed to do and what they're allowed to do, and we keep each other in check. Let's see. For our facts about senators, you should have that a senator can be 30 years or older. You should have that they have to live within the state that they represent. I believe senators have to have lived there for 8 years, but they have to have lived in the state that they represent. And that there are 100 senators, 2 for each state. So it doesn't matter how big the state is or how small the state is, each state has 2 senators, making 100 senators. And I do think we talked about also that the leader of the Senate is actually the Vice President of the United States. So the President of the Senate is the Vice President of the United States, and he is the tiebreaker vote. If there's a tie and it happens, then the Vice President is the one who's in charge of the Senate, and he can break that vote. He can vote when there's a tie. Okay, so that's our Senate side review. Now let's move on to the House of Representatives. So in the House, here's the spelling if you want to write this down first. The House of Representatives, okay. In the House, they're not called senators. They're called congressmen and congresswomen. Congressmen and congresswomen can be younger. They can be 25 years of age or older. There are 453 members of Congress in the House of Representatives. So there are a lot more congressmen and congresswomen than there are senators. The way that they based our representatives, it's the size of our state. So we'll get into that when we read our story, but the bigger your state, the more congressmen and congresswomen you're allowed to have representing you in the House of Representatives. So that's a little different than the Senate, right? In the Senate, it doesn't matter how big or small your state is, you get 2. In the House, if you have a bigger state, you get more representatives, okay? The leader in the House of Representatives is the Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House holds the gavel, and they keep order, and they decide what the House of Representatives is going to vote on. They have a lot of power. So that they're not the president of the House, they're the Speaker of the House. Okay, so that's different than the Senate too. So if you got all of these written down, then great, we'll move on. If not, pause it here and write these facts down under your House of Representatives side, and we will move on with our story, okay? All right, great. So, the House. What's the deal with the House? Let's learn a little bit about it. Making the rules. Have you ever wished you could make the rules? You could if you were in the House of Representatives. The U.S. House of Representatives is in the legislative branch of the U.S. government. Members of the legislative branch make laws for the nation. And here's a picture of what that looks like. This is not the current speaker. That's a Republican speaker. But that's where they meet. All right. In the legislative branch, the House of Representatives and the Senate make up the Congress. So the Congress has two parts, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Together, they work in the Capitol building, and the Capitol building is open to the public. You can take tours of it. It's gorgeous. It's really cool. There's a lot of statues that were gifts from other countries in the statue room. There's actually a lot of history, old paintings. Very neat place to tour with your family at some point. Maybe keep it on your radar of list of things to do in the future. Okay, ideas for new laws can come from the president, from Congress, or other people. From these ideas, members of Congress write bills. We know that. Representatives present and debate the bills just like the Senate does. They debate also. And they vote. If a bill passes in both the House and the Senate, it goes to the president, and then the president either says, nope, I veto this law and I send it back for the drawing board, work on it some more. Or he says, okay, and he signs it, and then that bill becomes a law. So it all starts with the legislative branch. Okay, there are rules about who can be a representative. Representatives need to be U.S. citizens for 7 years or more. So you don't have to be born here and lived here all your life, but you have to have been a citizen for at least 7 years, okay? They must be at least 25 years old, we wrote that down, and they must also live in the state where they were elected. So if you want to represent Virginia, you have to live in Virginia. Once elected, representatives serve a 2-year term meaning the time that they serve, 2 years, and they can run for office again and again if they want. So some popular congressmen and women are there for years. Their term is up in 2 years, but they can run again, and if they get elected again, they can come back. And a lot of them do. People in every state elect leaders to serve in the House of Representatives, and the House has 435 members, which we wrote already. States with many people have more representatives. So, for example, a large state like California has 53 representatives. But a smaller state like Vermont or Maine has 1. So each representative works for the people of his or her home state. Okay? Their job, they have a lot of duties. They sit on committees, and they're always talking about how to make the country better, ideas for new bills and new laws. But the representatives also help set up taxes and decide how tax money should be spent. And that's important. We all pay into taxes when you work or if you have a business. And then the government takes that money from us and puts it to work, hopefully and mostly for us, in government programs like making the roads better, or all of our national parks that we studied this year are funded by government funds. Well, anything that the government pays for. So the Congress has a very important role of the power of the purse, and we'll get back to that. Okay, the power of the purse. They're in control of the money. Each representative also serves on 2 committees, and the committees focus on certain things like agriculture or budget, things like that. Okay? Representatives attend meetings. They want to keep in touch with their voters, so they visit their home states and speak with their voters to find out what they might want to have written in a law, what's a good fit for them. We talked about the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House is the leader of the U.S. House of Representatives. And during large meetings, the Speaker asks members to talk about bills, and the Speaker also meets with the President and leaders of the Senate to talk about bills. So he's or she is in charge and brings the ideas to the other body of Congress, which is the Senate, and to the President to debate and talk about things and work things out. And it's true that they hold this big gavel, like we're used to seeing a judge, to keep order in the meetings, because sometimes the debates can get a little lively, and that's a tradition that they still do. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover about the House, but let's get back to that idea of the power of the purse. Let me put you on hold for a sec. Hold on. All right, thank you for your patience. The one thing else I want to cover about the House is that I mentioned the power of the purse, and that's so important for the Congress. So let's write that down, the power of the purse. And we talked about taxes a little bit. Here's just a little picture of a money bag and some money. Taxes are collected from the American public, okay? Your moms and dads, we work hard. We get a little chunk of our money that we earn taken out of our pay for taxes. And businesses too pay into taxes. The Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives get to decide how they spend that money. So this is a very important role, and we'll talk about later why we separate our powers up in our government. But the main power that the Congress holds is the power of the purse. So you can imagine that being in charge of the money and how it gets spent is pretty important, right? So write that down, add it to your House of Representatives side. And I think that'll be it that we'll cover for this today. If you have any questions, could you star them in your notebook or write it down in your notebook? Because we are going to meet tomorrow quickly on Zoom before we meet for break, and we can go over it then. Okay? All right, see you guys next time.